After a couple of daybreaks, my grandfather dropped my dad back at mile 323. Not long after hitting the trail, he was looking down at Silverwood Lake. He could see fishermen down below trying to catch their limit. Coming down from the hills, he had to cross Route 138 one more time. Coming down from the hills, he had to cross Route 138 one more time. This was made difficult by all the impromptu streams blanketing the road. Soon enough, he was back on the hills as he approached Interstate 15 and Cajon Pass. He made good time, 18 miles before lunch, but he had good reason to get there fast. Cajon Pass is famous for the McDonald's right off the trail. Traditionally, thru-hikers binge there before entering the Wrightwood wilderness. My dad was just getting back on trail, so his lunch was mild compared to the many other hikers passing through. As he left McDonald's to road walk to the first campground after Cajon Pass, he met a British thru-hiking couple, waiting for their friend to come back from across the freeway. Across the freeway is a market where you can resupply. He would later find out their names were Charlie and Lily, and their friend's name was Donut. Charlie proclaimed he'd eaten 6,000 calories as he was finishing a pint of ice cream. They were planning on camping at the same spot as my dad. They talked briefly when they rolled in after my dad set up camp. Donut was from Belgium. My dad didn't expect to see them again because he got up early and planned on hiking 17 miles to Guffey's campground, which was farther than the Europeans planned to go. Breakfast was one of the 2 McDoubles he got to go the day before. He was driven through the Cajon Pass countless times, but has never seen it from this perspective. Looking down from the slopes leading to Wrightwood, the pass looks like 2 snakes winding their way into the desert. This day was tough. After a morning of following the desert trails rising up into the hills, it became snow-covered, requiring extra traction and ice axes for some more. At first, it was only the difficulty of elevation gain and ice axe work, but soon the snow became slushy and the trail became difficult to follow. The only footprints my dad had to follow often left the trail, so he wasn't just exhausted but also frustrated by the route finding and bushwhacking. He passed through a great campspot called Hetchy 2 that wasn't in far out his navigation app, but he had plans for Guffey. As the day wore on, Guffey seemed unattainable. By 3:30, he was exhausted and supposedly at a campsite. He only hiked 14 miles and there was no sign of a campsite because everything was covered in snow. He was on the exposed ridge, but he was too tired to go on. Dejected, he decided to bail on Wrightwood at Acorn Trail the next day and communicated this to my grandfather. But after setting up his tent, the Europeans arrived. He was so happy to see the friendly faces of Donut, Lily, and Charlie again. Encouraged by having people to hike with, they came up with a new plan. They'd hike together where the trail crossed Highway 2 at mile 369. The night turned out to be pleasant. My dad's socks didn't even freeze, but the snow was stiff enough to walk on most of the morning. The day's hike was the highlight of the trip so far. Having company and having many unique experiences made the day fly by. A pine tree shedding its cones down the slick slope in an interesting pattern. Ski lifts, communication towers, and snow-covered forest camp, and a pond used to make artificial snow look like a mini glacier bay. Skiers. My grandfather reached a road blockage just as my dad and his friend were reaching Highway 2. That's when they figured out my dad's crew was going to have to walk 1.5 miles to reach my grandfather's parking spot. Unfortunately, the sun had turned the stiff snow to slush, but at least it was all downhill. This was Easter morning, and Los Angelinos drove to the spot to celebrate the holiday in the snow, so my dad's crew got yet another unique set of sights. My grandfather drove the Europeans to Wrightwood, where they would resupply and perhaps make a zero the next day. My dad continued to my grandfather's house, where they had a special Easter dinner, including my aunt's family. Snake count, 0. Trail stops checklist. Cajon Pass, check. Acorn Trail, check. Although they didn't hike down it. Highway 2, check.